Hey everybody, G Bear out here in the desert. Last day. I've been out here since the 23rd. I spent Memorial Weekend out here and I got a lot of work done. And I got a lot of other things done, but we'll discuss that at another time. Anyway, we're in the orchard here and I want to show you, I got a little bit of fresh growth on my little clone twig there. And all the other trees here are looking good. And show you over here my gala apples. They're a little on the dry leaf side, but that's because we've been having a lot of hot wind. I gave these a good soaking today, and a couple of days ago, Andy gave them watering. Anyway, check the apples out on my tree. They seem to be happy. They're starting to plump up a little bit. And there's my other gala apple over there, and the fig has got its leaves back and growing, and it looks like I've got a couple of figs starting to come out on this thing right here. There's one there, one there. So I might even get a couple of figs off that. Anyway, come over here to the peach tree, and the peaches are looking good. Leaves are a little dried and burnt because of the hot, dry winds that we've been having. Right now, it is humid. And there's a plum tree. It's getting pretty green. I think these aren't going to produce for a year or two because they're still young and they're not clones. But check this out. Look at that horizon. It almost looks like it's raining over there. And it is humid. I'm telling you, right now I'm standing still and sweating, and I just got out of the shower. So it's pretty hot out here right now. Anyway, here we are back at the cherry tree. And it's still showing signs of life, but again, it's been hot and dry. The apricot and the plum and the garden over there, the kale's still up, the onions are still going. My cilantro has gone to seed, but that's okay. I'm going to move on down. I promised I'd leave the container open. You see my ATV out here. We had the trailer, and right now it's loaded down with compost, but we had the trailer out and we had some blue water barrels on it, or one blue water barrel on it, and Andy hauled it around and did watering that way. It was a little easier than running back and forth with the watering can. But I did promise I would get into the container with some light in here and show you how I've gotten things a little moved around. You can see I got a paint shelf back there. I got a shelf up here for my plant stuff, and I got a couple of water cans here, and I hung up the pipes and gutters over here. This is spare propane. That down there is my hydroponics chemicals. And I got a solar shower hanging here, which I hardly ever use because it'll burn you out here. It'll get way too hot. But I got a shelf up here where I keep all my tools, and then some hardware stuff that I might be able to use along the line. Then I've got my cleaning stuff over here, and soaps. All of these barrels are water down here, and they are full, and I'm holding those as reserve water. That black bucket's also full of water. When I want some hot water, all I have to do is set that black bucket out in the sun for a couple hours, and that stuff comes out as hot as the water out of your water heater at home. Anyway, I got one shelf here that's set up for plumbing. There's some SharkBite fittings there. Those will be going into the cabin. I'll show you that in a little while. I got a lot done in there. I've got some temperature gauges here that will end up going in my solar water heaters. And, that's my solar shower head and the self-closing shower valve, just like MASH, where they pull the chain and get water. This is a battery-powered irrigation unit. That'll be getting hooked up in the future. And I got a solar-powered fountain pump here. That'll be used for irrigation on my hydroponics. So it'll run during the day when the sun's out. It'll pump my hydroponic fluids into my plants. And I want to get those set up because I can leave that running and I don't have to worry about watering. And if I'm gone for a week or two from up here, all that stuff can be doing its own thing. And when I come up here, I'll have fruits and vegetables that I can pick off of the vines. Anyway, this one is for electric. There's my MPPT controller. That's a hybrid controller, and this one connects the wind power up here. These two outer connections are for a big unit like this. And this is a big resistor, and it's actually like a heating element. It puts off quite a bit of heat when it gets hot. And what that's for is the wind generators, or wind turbines. When they get to spinning, they make electricity. The wind doesn't stop; it keeps on going, so it keeps creating electricity. Once the batteries are full, it's still creating electricity. So where's that electricity go? Well, it goes through that heating element. And that heating element will keep the batteries warm, or the battery room warm, during the winter time. In the summer, that extra electricity actually will connect through, I think I showed you these ones before, these barrels right here. You see I've got fill tubes on the side that show how much water's in them. But one of these has got a heating element in it. And that will heat hot water just by the unit spinning and the extra electricity going into there. Anyway, enough of that. I do have another hybrid controller here. This is 1224 volt, 300 watt wind, 500 watt solar. And that's a solid state unit. So I probably, as a PWM, I probably just keep that for backup. And these are all 12 volt lights up here, things like that. And 12 volt alarm system going to be going on my little shed, things like that. Extra wire. There's my homemade wind turbine, and that does work. I just got to finish putting it together and get it on a wind swivel or a weather vane so that it turns itself into the wind and keeps creating. I've got a bug zapper up there and so forth. This is all plumbing PEX tube that will be being used on the next trip. Now back here, we just started sorting through this. We were digging through, I was looking for some things I needed. This is my big inverter right here underneath these towels. And this is a 32,000 watt inverter. That's a peak, but this one does, this does a peak surge to 32,000. That's 32 kilowatts. That's a lot of power. Anyway, that'll get hooked up. I got a whirlybird there. That's going to end up on this container to get the heat out of this container. It gets hot in here. There's my old homemade potbelly stove we used last winter. I got a can of high temp paint on there to brush that down and get it painted, but that's not priority. Extra propane storage back here and stuff like that. I got some plywood here left over from the roofing, but that's going to be for the battery cable, the battery bank shed that I'm going to put on the other side of my shed. I'll show you that later. Then I got another shelf here, and I started putting some of my other stuff on there. I got some salt down here and some cane sugar, so forth and so on. That's all for my canning. And then I took the microwave out of the motorhome and moved it over here because it hardly ever gets used, and I could use the counter space in there. So that's about it. I'll show you how I started getting some organization here. There's a coat rack that was a gift, and I got that hanging up there. Moving on outside here, we're going to come around to, oh yeah, these are plants I brought up, and I was hoping to get another garden started over in this area and get all those into the ground and then run that irrigation, that battery powered irrigation off of this barrel so that they would get watered while I was away. But didn't have time for that. Had other things involved, and did have some wind gusts, gusty days that called for a lack of work and a little bit of sitting down. While I'm here, I did use some water out of this barrel, so let me get the cover back on it. My little multi-tool here for tightening these things down.